Happy New Year!
Happy New Year!
It's great to see you all. I know we've got some folks that have been having some very rich conversations in the lobby that are joining us. As you know, well, let me just say, I hope you all had a great break and that we had a little extra time here now before classes start. I think a whole extra week compared to last year. So I hope you're all extra energized for the students that will be coming with us beginning Saturday. We begin each of our convocations with a drawing. And just to let you in on the secret that if you get through that door before 9 o'clock, you actually get your ticket. And it's really a way to get people to come and sit down so we can get the program started on time. So that's the secret behind the drawings.
I don't know what I did with my ticket.
Last semester, we did something a little different.
Is that mine?
We picked 6 of you randomly. I was going to say we picked 6 random people, but that may not have sounded so right. But they were random people, I will say that. 6 people, actually 7 people, excuse me, last semester. And we sent them for an evening of dinner and theater. They had dinner at Ambrosia, a restaurant across the street. Then they got to enjoy the wonderful production of Little Women, directed by Dr. Lisa Morris. So the only thing we asked this random group of 7 people was that they would come back this semester and provide us a recap of their evening. I suggested song, interpretive dance, haiku, but they chose video. So let's take a look at the video. What's the name? 622-111. Kim Roger. I think she knows it. 622-199. Right behind her, Laura Cooper. This is the test that I got 5 minutes later. 622-211. 211. Jesse Klein. 168-622-168. Say go, Ryan Paul. 622-134. Oh my gosh, Wanda. Right now, it's got nothing in the mail for us, so we're going to get 622-144. 144. There we go. Oh my gosh. Coming in. Paul, electrician, right? Welcome. Okay. So please let me know, guys.
There we go.
Give it up for Alexio and his random dinner party. Alexio made a great table captain. Thank you very much, Alexio. I hope you all had fun. So now we're going to pick and create another group of 6. This is all in the spirit of creating community and having you have the opportunity to get to know each other better. This year, this semester, we are sending the group to the March 5th production of Comedy of Errors, directed by the legendary Jim Dunn, which is back of the room back there, and Dinner at Ambrosia. So let's pick some names. Okay, a lucky first one. 622-380. 622-380. Parking cars, okay. 622-435. 622-435. Oh, Diane Traversi. She was just telling me to look at her ticket. 622-425. In the back. I can't see. Who's that? Come on down. Give her some encouragement. Give her a round of applause. Who's that? I can't see. While she's coming down, 622-270. 622-270. Right here. Come on down, sir. We'll get your names here shortly. 622-291. 622-291. Okay. 622-278. Come on, don't be shy. Dinner and theater. Who is that? Oh, Claudette. Tell me if I got it. 622-239. 622-23. Don't be shy, people. Because you get these tickets are also exchangeable for something much larger than just 622-263. 622-263. Oh, come on down, man. One more. 622-364. Oh, come on down. Okay, so sir, tell us your name and what you do at the college.
Jim Cunningham.
Jim Cunningham.
Biology.
Claudette Maldani, Senior Human Resources Analyst.
My name is Sharon Vartanian, part-time instructor in core reporting. Diane Traversi, Enrollment Services.
Marion Mermel Emeritus.
Excellent.
Gina Cohen, Counseling.
Great. I know the energy levels of Gina and Diane, so I'm going to ask them to be co-table captains. So that'd be a big round of applause for our random group of winners. Thank you, guys. So we have one more drawing. We're going to draw for 4 books, and we'll explain the significance of these books here in a moment, or later in the program. 622-355. 622. You got to yell bingo or something. Come on. Okay, the book is At Night We Walk in Circles. In the Day I Walk in Circles. Okay, a novel by Daniel Alarcon. Your name?
Dorman, Architecture.
All right.
Another book. Give it up for Elizabeth. 622-387. 622-387. A book, At Night We Walk in Circles. Okay. 622-353. Come on down. 622-353. How are you getting so many duds in here? 622-416. Come on, it's a book. You don't have to talk to anybody. You don't have to go down. Oh, come on down. Okay. And your name is?
Karina Rollins, teach real estate.
Fantastic. Thank you, Karina. Congratulations. 622-305. 622-305. Somebody's playing tricks on me here. 622-382. 382. 2 more books over there. Okay. Waiting here. 622-300. 622-300. Up in the back. Great. Okay. So good morning. Here you go. And your name is?
Vi Epperson, and I teach speech.
Thank you, Vi. Congratulations.
Jennifer Spees, Enrollment Services.
Okay, thank you all for participating in our drawing this semester. And we look forward to hearing back from our dinner party next fall. Let's see where we're at here in the program. So, on December 11th, we had one of the biggest storms that we've had in a very long time. And in fact, that storm caused the college and all of the schools in Marin County to close down for a day. One of the biggest, rainiest, stormy days of the year. And I think it was affectionately known as Stormageddon, right?
Yeah.
So while the majority of us were warm and dry at home, there were a group of stormtroopers that were here on the Kidfield campus as well as the Indian Valley campus, truly holding things together. We had some flooding in multiple places, we had some trees that came down, we had some retaining walls in Indian Valley that came down. In fact, Indian Valley we had to close for the second day. So I want to take a moment to acknowledge our stormtroopers and ask them to stand as their name is called. First of all, among the management team, Greg Nelson, Laura McCarty, Heidi Rank, Jeff Cox, the M&O staff, Chris Diaz, Todd Staines, John Rodriguez, Paul Wilson, Jeff Markham, Tracy Thomas, Steve Garrett, Phil Fahey, Scott Amos, Paul Dominguez, Rodney Craig, Dave Lambert, Joseph Thomas, the police department, Sergeant Kidder, Officer Noah, Officer Langenwald, PSA Manoa, Officer Brown, PSA Tucker, Cadet Mazariergos, Cadet Tucker, and Cadet Shankar. Big round of applause for our stormtroopers. We thank you very much. You truly went above and beyond. And if I had the opportunity, I would take you each to lunch to say thank you. But because of the long list, that is impossible. However, what we do have for you is a gift certificate to go next door to the Woodlands Market, $10, to have a little extra lunch on the college to say thank you for your extra efforts. So thank you all very much. Appreciate it. Okay, let's get to some introductions this morning. First of all, I am joined by several of our esteemed trustees. I will tell you that the full board would have liked to have been here. Wednesday morning is a little difficult for some people, but we truly appreciate our stalwarts that are out this morning to support the college. We have Brady Beavis, Trustee Brady Beavis, and Trustee Eva Long. Now today is a special day for Eva. It's her 39th birthday. So I want us to all take an opportunity to sing happy birthday to Dr. Trustee Eva Long. Happy
birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Eva. Happy birthday to you.
Very well done. I haven't heard that kind of harmony since the Messiah back in December, which was a great performance, by the way. So thank you both for being here. One of our traditions at Convocation is also to introduce any new employees that are new to the college since we had our last introductions, which was in the fall. So I'm going to take a moment to introduce a variety of new people at the college and ask them to stand and be recognized. First of all, our new faculty, full-time Student Accessibility Services DSP counselor, Luna Finlinson. Luna, please stand. We have Dr. Marshall Alameda, Dean of Health Sciences. Dr. Alameda in the very back of the room. Dr. Carol Hernandez, Dean of Math and Sciences. Hernandez. Dr. Christina Leimer, Director of Planning, Research, and Institutional Effectiveness. We have Marixa Barnett, Accounting Technician. We have Brianna Haggett, Accountant. Brianna. We have Heidi Rank, Assistant Director of Facilities Planning, Maintenance, and Operations, currently Acting Director. We We have Emily Silcox, Assistant Dean of Enrollment Services, Student Financial Assistance. We have Connor Bird, Kinesiology and Athletics Equipment Manager. Nicole Cruz, not new to the college, but new to my office, Executive Assistant, Nicole Cruz. Mary Lou Fragata, Staff Accountant. We have Gabriel Lambert, Lead Custodian. Gabriel in the back. And Joseph Thomas, also Lead Custodian. Joseph. Let's give a round of applause for all of our new full-time people joining the community. We also like to take pause and ask if there are any new part-time employees with us that we didn't introduce, that we would quickly run around and ask them to take the microphone if you introduce your name and what you'll be doing with us. Any new part-timers with us today? Sir, either shout it out or I'm going to have somebody run up there.
No, I'm George Rothbard, mathematics.
Welcome, George. We couldn't do what we do without our valued part-timers. Other new part-time folks. Okay. Well, George, you're it. The party's about you, buddy. Thank you for the introductions. Okay. We are going to make a transition here. You give me just one moment. Okay. There we go. Before we introduce our guest speaker, which is a bit later in the morning, we want to take the opportunity to provide you with some what I believe to be valuable college updates. But first, before we get there, the new year has gotten off to an exciting start for community colleges across the country with the prospect of a college promise. On January 8th, President Obama unveiled the America's College Promise proposal, which would make 2 years of community college free for responsible students. You can start by.
I'm here on Air Force One, just leaving Detroit on my way to Phoenix. You know, what we're doing is we're doing a little preview of the State of the Union. There are a lot of things I want to talk about, and I figured why wait for 2 weeks. Let me start describing what I hope we can accomplish together in 2015. On Friday, I'm going to be going to Tennessee, and one of the things we're going to be talking about is education. I think everybody understands it is the key to success for our kids in the 21st century. But what we also understand is that it's not just for kids. We also have to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to constantly train themselves for better jobs, better wages, better benefits. And what I'm going to be talking about in Tennessee is, first of all, what a great job Tennessee has done in all kinds of education reform. But what I'm also going to do is announce a proposal that I'm going to be making to make sure that community college is accessible for everybody. Put simply, what I'd like to do is to see the first 2 years of community college free for everybody who's willing to work for it. That's right, free for everybody who's willing to work for it. It's something that we can accomplish, and it's something that will train our workforce so that we can compete with anybody in the world. So I hope you'll have a chance to tune in as we make these proposals, and I hope we've got a chance to make sure that Congress gets behind these kinds of efforts to ensure that even as we rebound and grow in 2015, that it benefits everybody and not just some.
Appreciate President Obama stopping by. In the White House's press release, it was noted, today more than ever, Americans need more knowledge and skills to meet the demands of a growing global economy without having to take on decades of debt before they even embark on their career. The America's College Promise proposal would create a new partnership with states to help them waive tuition or fees in high-quality programs for responsible students, while promoting key reforms to helping more students complete the first 2 years of college. The formula seems to be fairly straightforward. It's about a quality college experience plus free tuition equals gains in enrollment, persistence, certificate completion, transfer, and employment. Let's have a look at the specifics. The first aspect that's emphasized is on student responsibility. So in order for the students to have their fees or tuition eliminated, they would need to be at least half-time, maintain a 2.5 grade point average, and make steady progress towards completing their program. And of course, the community colleges, we have our part of the deal as well. And here's our end. We will be expected to offer programs that either, one, are academic programs that fully transfer to local public four-year colleges and universities, check, and two, occupational training programs, or what we call career technical education programs with high graduation rates that lead to degrees and certificates that are in demand among employers. Check, check. Colleges must also adopt promising and evidence-based institutional reforms to improve student outcomes. Evidence-based institutional reforms. And that sounds an awful lot to me like the work we're doing with our Student Success Act. In the proposal, of course, the devil is always in the detail. The federal government would be funding 3/4 of the average cost of community college, and then the states would pick up the rest of the responsibility to cover the tuition and fees. See, states that already invest a great deal in supporting students would actually have the options of paying less. So keeping in mind in California, we have one of the lowest fees, tuition, I think, if not the lowest across the country. And currently, 50% of our students or more are actually eligible for the Board of Governors fee waiver. So the state is already investing a significant amount of money in supporting the education of our students. It'll be interesting to see how the details work out. So in addition to unveiling the America's College Promise proposal on January 8th, President Obama also proposed the American Technical Training Fund. This fund will award programs that have strong employer partnerships and include work-based learning opportunities like internships and apprenticeships, ones that provide accelerated training and are scheduled to accommodate the part-time worker. The focus would be on high-potential, low-wage workers, helping them gain skills to work in growing fields with significant numbers of middle-class jobs that local employers are trying to fill. So there are two very exciting proposals and initiatives that have been put forward. And of course, it's very difficult to know where either will end up given the political environment of our nation's capital. But regardless of where the proposals end up, what a tremendous validation of the work of the community colleges in the role that we play in education and training, and in the role that we play in economic development and the prosperity of our country. I would be remiss at this time in not taking a pause to thank each of you for the important role that you play in that work. So please give yourselves a round of applause. So much more to come from the President. We see where those exciting initiatives end up. So while President Obama was busy unveiling exciting new initiatives in support of education, Governor Brown was also busy at work. Shortly after being sworn in for his unprecedented fourth term, I keep hearing this unprecedented fourth term, as Governor of California, he released his 2015-16 budget proposal. And I will tell you that the outlook for the California community colleges is very positive. While we will learn more about the details of the proposals in the coming days and weeks, I want to take a few minutes to highlight some of the key components of the proposal. First, there are $200 million that have been earmarked for student success. These funds will be split evenly between the Student Success and Support Program and Student Equity Plans. We have both, and I'm pleased to report that we are eligible for a portion of these funds. $125 million has been earmarked to increase base allocation funding. This is great for the apportionment districts, not good for basic aid districts. There's $106.9 million for increased access. This would increase access for approximately 45,000 students. As a basic aid district, it's unlikely that we would be eligible for those funds, but we will wait and see. $92.4 million has been set aside for a COLA. This would fund a statutory cost of living adjustment in the amount of 1.58%. Unfortunately, as a basic aid district, we are not eligible for those funds. $49 million to fund career development and college preparation. Bottom line here is that the basic aid, again, we are not eligible. Good news, this next one, $48 million for career technical education. These one-time funds are proposed to further support the SB 1070 Career Technical Education Pathways Program, and we are eligible to receive funding for those programs. $39.6 million for Proposition 39. These funds support projects in workforce development related to energy sustainability. We actually this year did receive some funding for Prop 39, and we are eligible for a portion of these funds. Big number, $353.3 million to pay down outstanding mandate claims. In other words, this is deferred maintenance and instructional equipment. These are one-time funds and are directly related to our FTES spaces. A portion of these funds we do receive, actually we are anticipating to receive $1.2 million in those outstanding mandated claim funds, so that's very good news. So as you can see, it gives you a sample of the governor's budget, his proposal, and you can see that it reflects a strong commitment to education and a strong commitment to the community colleges. But there's a cautionary note that I have to provide here, and that's is in the words of Dan Troy, our Vice Chancellor of Finance and Facilities Planning at the Chancellor's Office. And he says that while the 2015-16 year appears to be strong for the California community colleges, we need to remember that districts will face substantial challenges in the coming year due to the increases in STRS and PERS employer contribution rates. Further, these increases will need to be addressed by colleges as Proposition 30 revenues phase out, and they phase out at the end of 2016. And moreover, many districts also face large OPEB liabilities. That's our unfunded liability associated with our health benefits for retirees. So just keep that quote in mind when we come back and talk about our own budget later. So of course, the governor's budget proposal is not yet a done deal. You all know how it works. Next step includes going for analysis by the Legislative Analyst's Office, and that's a nonpartisan review, and then on to the respective legislative committees for a much spirited debate, I'm sure. So we will talk again about our budget a little bit later in the program. Well, let's give the governor a round of applause for support of education. Okay, so now that we've spent some time talking a little bit about what's happening at the national and state level, let's talk a little bit about what's happening here at home at the College of Marin. And I thought we probably should begin with a topic that was of much focus last fall semester, and that was our enrollment. Although we served over 9,300 students fall semester in our credit, non-credit, and community education programs, our enrollment in our credit program experienced a fairly significant reduction. As I reported to you on September 9th, this was the result of a convergence of factors. In particular, three major factors were at play. The first was changes to Title V regulations, limiting the number of times activity courses can be repeated. The second was the number of students disqualified from financial aid, either due to unsatisfactory performance or clocking out, due to having exceeded the newly established mandate limiting the cumulative units for declared program or educational goal. And the third was the course correction associated with upholding the district's policy of requiring students to pay enrollment fees within 5 days of registration. Once my remarks this morning are posted, there will be a link back to that communication for those of you that are interested in kind of refreshing yourself in detail. It was a long, lengthy, detailed communication that you might be interested in having a second look at. So while classes begin Saturday, January 17th, and our students are continuing to register for courses, I am pleased to report, and this is real wood, so I'm going to knock on it, that our enrollment for spring appears to be trending in a positive manner. And there are a variety of factors to which I attribute the positive trending that we're seeing in our enrollment. I thought I would share some of those with you this morning. The first is a series of initiatives that we have implemented in support of our student success agenda. And these include the development and implementation of registration priorities, the development and implementation of the degree audit program, the development and implementation of the MyCom portal dashboard, development of the lively online orientations, the successful pilot of the Early Alert program, the Com Cares program, and then the successful pilot Summer Bridge program. So I want to take a moment to recognize all of the individuals that have been involved in helping to create those tools and those support systems for our students. So please let's give them a round of applause. Changes to our scholarship program appear to be another factor positively influencing enrollment for spring semester. In addition to marrying the administration of our scholarship program with the administration of the financial aid within enrollment service, scholarships are awarded. So historically, you may recall back that once a year in the spring, at the end of the year, we'd have a scholarship ceremony. Students were honored, issued checks, and sent on their way. We are now awarding scholarships at the beginning of fall and spring terms, upon verification of enrollment and good academic standing. So awarding scholarships just in time will ideally lead to increases in the number of students who persist from semester to semester, as well as increased numbers of students who are retained. And additionally, we hope that this will result in fewer students needing to take student loans, fewer students accumulating high student loan debt, and fewer students who ultimately default on their loans. Not good for anybody. The scholarship committee met yesterday to make the final awards for spring semester. In total, we anticipate awarding $120,000 this year to approximately 250 students. I think we need to take a moment to acknowledge the scholarship committee and the enrollment services staff with responsibility for financial aid. Good stuff. So as we speak of scholarships, you may be wondering about the status of the College of Marin Foundation. I am pleased, I can't tell you how pleased, to report that we received notice on January 5th that the Marin Community College District has been designated a 501c3 tax-exempt organization with the IRS, retroactive to April 1st, 1926. This is tremendous news, of course, not only as it relates to our advancement and fund development efforts, but it also enables us to work with the State Attorney General's Office to resolve our outstanding issues with the College of Marin Foundation and ultimately to transfer the remaining assets to the college. So, really pleased about that. It's great news. On a related note, I'm pleased to report that the board will take action on Friday to approve the appointment of our new Executive Director of Development. While I can't share her name just yet, I'm confident that she's going to be a tremendous asset to the college. So lots of positive things in that regard. In President Obama's College Promise proposal, and try that by the way, College Promise proposal, he emphasized our role in having academic programs that fully transfer to local public four-year colleges and universities. So did you know that as of December 2014, College of Marin now has 18 transfer degrees that meet the criteria of Senate Bill 1440? Absolutely. In 2010, SB 1440 was passed with the expectation that we would create associate degrees for transfer that guarantee admission with junior standing to the CSU system. These degrees provide students with priority admission to local CSU campuses and to a program or major that is similar to their major or area of emphasis at the community college. I expect that many students will benefit from these degrees. This was truly a Herculean effort, and I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the work of our faculty, the curriculum committee, the academic senate, deans, the Office of Instructional Management for making this a reality. Please stand. I think this deserves a stand. Please stand and let's give you some appreciation for your hard work. I know there's lots more people than that involved, and we really appreciate the good work. Our Indian Valley campus continues to be a valued asset in support of our academic and career technical education programs. In President Obama's College Promise proposal, he also emphasized that we will be expected to offer career technical programs with high graduation rates and that lead to degrees and certificates that are in demand among employers. Again, check, check. Our CTE programs are indeed alive and well. And as recently as yesterday, we have been highly engaged with the Bay Area Community College Consortium, determining how to best invest the $7+ million in enhancement funds that were made available through SB 1070. While this is great news for the Bay Area Consortium, it's good news for us, but the College of Marin likely will only see about $200,000 of those funds. So good news though. With the Board of Governors statewide task force focused on workforce, job creation, and strong economy, Governor Brown's proposed additional infusion of $48 million for support of SB 1070, and the possibility of the American Technical Training Fund as proposed by President Obama, there couldn't be a better time to identify strategies through which we can expand our CTE program offerings. These are truly unprecedented times in the world of career technical education. Very exciting times. Staying in Indian Valley, the creation of the general education pathway and the addition of the general education courses during the day at Indian Valley fall semester was very well received, especially by our high school partners in Novato. High school counselors expect to begin enrolling their graduating seniors as well as their current juniors who want to jumpstart on their college career during their senior year. Vice President Eldridge and I just last night had the opportunity to discuss some of our recent collaborations with the Nevada Unified School District with the Nevada Unified Board of Education. We hope to see significant increases in our enrollment at Indian Valley for Novato this semester and in the semesters ahead. So a final note on the Indian Valley campus, together with the Board of Trustees, representatives with the City of Novato, Nevada Unified School District, and other members of the community, we launched our 2014-15 visioning for Indian Valley this past September. I wanted to share with you the stated purpose of these efforts. Quote, to develop a plan for enhancing the educational and recreational aspects of the Indian Valley campus and identify strategies for further enhancing the College of Marin and the community of Novato, unquote. In the very near future, we will be conducting a variety of studies on the feasibility of dormitory-style housing for students, a conference center, and a solar farm. So much more to come on Indian Valley, but I want to take a moment again to acknowledge the faculty, staff, and administrators who so aptly support our students who attend the Indian Valley campus. Let's give them a big round of applause. Big round of applause. Okay, shifting gears slightly. How are we doing here? Of course, I would be remiss this morning in not spending some time updating you on our budget planning efforts. I recognize that budget planning for many of us is our least favorite topic, and I can assure you that there are many other topics I'd rather be discussing on any given day. Sorry, Greg, it's just the way it is. That said, budget planning is one of the most critical things that we do. Without a good budget plan, we simply couldn't do what we do on behalf of our students and community. So I last communicated to you on this topic in September through a message that I distributed college-wide, which was then followed by several budget forums facilitated by Vice President Nelson and myself. I recognize that my written communication was received with mixed reviews. You know, I've come to realize that in the past 10 years of communicating budget messages, there's no perfect way to do it. There will always be non-believers and skeptics, but I've taken the opportunity to reread that message many times, and given the opportunity for a do-over, I'd probably change it up a bit. I can assure you that while it is always my intention to be honest, clear, and transparent, it is never, ever my intention to create an atmosphere of fear or intimidation. So if you have my apologies if in some way you experienced that message in that way. So just wanted to get that out there. In September, we reported that we projected a $2.4 million structural deficit by 2018. Or in other words, by staying the course, our expenses would exceed our revenue by $2.4 million in 2018. Unfortunately, this district has had a long history of living beyond its means. This is simply something that we can't sustain long term. So in September, I charged each vice president with the task of seeing whether it was possible to rip the Band-Aid off and identify $2 million in reductions. Each were responsible for a $1 million target. And I have to say, I greatly appreciate both Vice President Eldridge and Vice President Nelson taking on this daunting task in earnest. Each facilitated a variety of conversations, dialogues, and retreats where they involved employees across the college. In the end, we learned that ripping the Band-Aid off would have draconian impact on the college. So accordingly, we aren't going there. Since September, we have experienced another quarter of revenue and expenses. At this time, it appears that we continue to have a problem in the neighborhood of $2.1 to $2.4 million. So earlier I shared a quote with you from Vice Chancellor Dan Troy related to the rising cost of STRS and PERS obligations over the next 3 years. For the College of Marin, the increase in STRS and PERS over the next 3 years alone equates to $1,329,000 in increases. And that's obviously a big part of the $2.1 to $2.4 million. So rather than trying to close the gap all at once, we are going to recalibrate and recommit to a 3-year rolling budget and spread the reduction over 3 years to the tune of $700,000 to $800,000 each year. So I'm pleased to report that as a result of the budget conversations and exercises that many of you were engaged in, Jonathan and Greg, we've identified $750,000 in reductions for the 2015-16 year that will have minimal impact on our core mission. Specifically, these reductions relate to savings associated with the SERP, Supplemental Employee Retirement Program, savings associated with investing in efficiencies like automation of some of our processes, organizational restructuring, and a variety of energy-saving initiatives, and so on. So let me just say this. While I could never make the guarantee that there will never ever be a reduction force, I can assure you at this time there are no immediate plans for a reduction force. So please. I'm truly confident we're going to be able to pull together and get this figured out. We will continue to reforecast each quarter with a careful eye on the changes in our revenues and our expenses. And we will continue to connect budget planning with our institutional priorities, all with a focus on righting the ship and keeping us on course. So as we look ahead this semester, we have quite the full agenda. But what an exciting time we're in. The physical transformation of the Kentfield campus will continue with first the completion of the Academic Center, and then with the demolition of the Austin Science Center. I don't know if you noticed, TB1 is almost gone. Notice? At Indian Valley, roofing and ADA work will continue on the Pomo cluster. In the near future, I will be appointing a task force that will be charged with the development of our last 3-year strategic plan supporting our 10-year educational master plan. And of course, we will work to finalize our 3-year rolling budget, to which I referred earlier. We will further advance our student success agenda by continuing to deepen our relationships with our K-12 partners, with programs like COMPASS, which stands for College of Marin, providing access and supporting success. We will also continue to address student outcomes as called out in our student equity plan through such programs as Puente and Emoja. This time I'd like to invite Vice President Eldridge up to give you a little brief introduction of the COMPASS program.
Thank you. Good morning. President Kuhn told me to be on alert that this may be a 2-minute gig or a 15-minute gig, or it may not happen at all. I think I'm in the 2-minute range. 3-minute range. Okay. So many of you in the room have had a brief introduction to COMPASS. We've been talking about this for a while, and a number of folks, primarily Anna Pillaton, Jim Cullen, Alexandra Magallanes, Carrie Torres, a number of others have been involved in the formulation of this. But COMPASS really began over a year ago, almost a year and a half ago, with convening school leaders from every district in Marin County. And we had them as an advisory council that worked with us to develop the concept of what would it look like if we could get every student in Marin County believing that college is an inevitability rather than just a possibility. And if we were able to do that at an early enough age, what impact would that have on those students taking the appropriate, challenging coursework in high school, making the right decisions, engaging in the right planning, having their families engage in the right planning, for them to arrive at college, if not college ready, more college ready than they are now. As we know, we put an inordinate number of our resources, in millions of dollars every year, toward helping students get college ready once they're already at college taking college courses. And that creates difficulties for all of us, and certainly in our enrollment planning, in our course scheduling, in our student success, and the frustration that many of our faculty face in trying to teach students who are at varying levels of academic preparedness. So the concept behind COMPASS is relatively simple. What if instead of putting all of our resources to helping students get ready for college once they're already here, what if we started engaging those students as early as the 9th grade? What if those students signed a contract along with their parents, their principal, and the president of the College of Marin saying that everyone's going to agree to do certain things beginning in the 9th grade with the idea that we will dramatically increase the college readiness of those participants. And we're scaling this program, looking to scale this program, to have about 250 freshmen across the county, freshmen in high school across the county every year participate. The idea would be that by the end of their freshman year in high school, students would have a college course under their belt, and that would likely be a college counseling course that talks with them about study habits, the expectations of college, how to make good educational decisions in high school, etc. and then move on to get to the point where many of the participants would have multiple college units, up to perhaps a year of college completed by the time they graduate high school. And then whether they come to College of Marin or go elsewhere, they'll certainly be on that expedited path to their educational goals. And as President Obama says, 2 years free. Well, as we know, most of our students take much longer than 2 years. For many of them, that's because they are not prepared to fully engage in the educational experience at the college level. So the resources we're looking to put toward this, we have some of them. It's a matter of rearranging them. But we're also in conversations with Marin Community Foundation, 10,000 Degrees. And this is a key discussion point with the Marin Promise focus group at this point. And our hope is that by the end of this term, we'll have some assistance in place so that we can begin rolling this out. We have some very excited partners, Novato High School, San Marin, San Rafael, Terra Linda, on and on throughout the county, who are very eager to work with us to make this happen. This fits very well with our student success commitment. The first recommendation of the Student Success Task Force, back when they made their 22 recommendations, out of which many of the things that the President talked about us having accomplished or having in place came from, the very first recommendation was to work more collaboratively with K-12 to align what is happening in the high schools with what needs to be the education that students receive when they come to college. So this is a major effort in that regard. It's exciting, and I think we'll see huge benefits. We're already seeing just how excited the high schools are to have our participation. One last practical note on some recent things. This will play out not only in students in high school looking toward college, but there's also an opportunity for us to assist the high schools in the way they go about their business. And a great example of that is Dean Carol Hernandez has taken the lead working with Fernando Guldo Silva, and I believe also Becky Brown, Joe Mueller, and some others, to begin having conversations with San Marin High School. They're creating a global academy program for their students with a focus on reading, on writing, on sustainability, and they're seeking our assistance in developing that curriculum and making sure there's good alignment. Those are the kinds of students who will benefit greatly from our attention at an earlier age, and thus we will then all benefit from them coming here and having a great experience at College of Marin. The last thing I'll say is that this is critical for Marin County for a variety of reasons. The most important of which we'll probably hear a little bit about from our keynote today. And that is that in Marin County there's a huge equity issue when it comes to education. We have a significant number of students who are not meeting A to G requirements by the time they graduate. 40% of high school graduates in Marin County don't meet A to G requirements. Those are the requirements that suggest you're ready to go on to higher education. Within that 40% though, African American, Latino, and other underserved, socioeconomically disadvantaged students, their achievement rates are in the 20%. Now that means that only about 28% of African American students in Marin County are graduating with their A to G requirements. Some of that has to do with them being tracked into different directions, not even having the opportunity to complete them. Those are some of the things that we can play a role in focusing these efforts, focusing our engagement with K-12 on understanding that the students of Marin County, the diversity of students in Marin County, all deserve to see college as an inevitability, not just a remote possibility. And that, I think, is the most exciting part of this program, and why, as we move it out over the next few months, next few years, our efforts will begin to pay off in many, many ways, both in the college with enrollment and well beyond. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. So while there's a lot of work ahead of us this semester, there's some great celebrations that are going to be taking place. For one, we'll be celebrating the 50th anniversary of the Drama program. Let's give a round of applause for our folks in the drama department. It's also the 50th anniversary of our nursing program. So let's give all of our nursing staff, administrators, congratulations. Another exciting initiative ahead, and this relates to the books that were raffled off at the beginning of the program, is a special initiative moving forward this semester called One Book, One College. And I'd like to invite Dr. Dave Patterson, one of our esteemed librarians, to the stage to talk about program. Dave.
Good morning, everyone. I'm really excited to talk to you about a festival that happens every spring in Marin County. It's called One Book, One Marin, and it starts 3 weeks from tonight at Book Passage, our wonderful independent bookstore in Corte Madera. Every year, One Book, One Marin chooses a book, and the whole county is invited to read the book. And it's been going on for 9 years, but this is the first year that College of Marin is participating because we just joined MarinNet in July, so we're really excited. It starts, as I said, in 3 weeks with the author of the book being at the launch party at Book Passage. It goes all semester long and ends in May. And throughout the county there are events at all different libraries. And they're all free, so you can encourage your students to go and maybe offer extra credit. So what's the book this year? Well, you may have figured it out. It's At Night We Walk in Circles by Daniel Alarcon, and he is a local writer. He was born in Peru. He moved to Alabama when he was a young man, and he now lives in San Francisco. Is this sounding okay? Okay, good. He is, I think, in his late 30s, and this is his third novel, but critics are calling it his breakout novel. It's a fantastic read. As you can see, it's full length, and you know, our students, some of them are avid readers and some of them are not. And this may be the book that makes them fall in love with reading. It takes place in Peru in 2001, and it involves the aftermath of the brutal civil war in Peru. There's this young guy, Nelson, who's 19. He's a charismatic, aspiring actor. But his life is in shambles. His girlfriend is sleeping with another man. His father's died. He's taking care of his mother, who's failing. His brother has immigrated to the United States and kind of left him high and dry. Then he has his big break. He is selected to act in a play that goes out into the rural areas of Peru, and these amazing events unfold. So I loved it. I hope you'll give it a shot. If you don't like novels, Alarcon has also written short stories, one that this book is based on. And if you don't like short stories, he's also written some journalism. He's actually teaching this semester in New York at Columbia in the journalism department. He's a fantastic writer. So what are we doing to participate? Well, one thing that's really exciting is Yolanda Bellissimo has very kindly agreed to give a public lecture in the library's new event space on the recent history and economics and politics of Peru. David King is teaching the novel in one of his courses. And how can you participate? Well, if you'd like, you can read the book. We have a bunch of copies. Just ask any librarian, John, Sarah. I'd be happy to help you, or our leader, Pearl. You could also encourage your students to go to some of these events. And the culminating event is really exciting. It takes place every year at Dominican. It's on the evening of May 19th. And Danielle Alarcon is going to be interviewed on stage by KQED's Michael Krasny. So that's really exciting. So can you imagine our students going to something like that and getting into that world of literature and literary events? It's really exciting. The second book is for next year. We wanted you to start thinking about this. So At Night We Walk in Circles is countywide, but we thought that it would be great to have a college-wide read. This is called Becoming Dr. Q, My Journey from Migrant Farm Worker to Brain Surgeon. It's autobiography. It's a page-turner. This I loved. It's a little challenging. It's a novel, and it's a little complicated. This, you just can't put it down. It's a story of a man who grew up dirt poor in Mexico, not even enough food to eat, moved to America without documentation, helped to bring in the harvest in our Central Valley, and went to community college. And it's a story about overcoming all sorts of obstacles, and the educators and the student service folks are highlighted. It's very inspirational. At one point, he doesn't even realize that there's more college beyond community college. He thought community college was it, and his friends said, no, some students transfer. So he transferred to Berkeley, and then he was accepted to medical school at Harvard. He went to UCSF, and he did a fellowship in brain surgery, and now he's at Johns Hopkins teaching brain surgery and performing brain surgery. So why am I bringing it up now if it's for next year? Well, we're hoping that some of you from across campus, every corner of our campuses, will be on a committee to help map out how this might look. We see it as a possibility to unify what students are learning. You know, they learn all sorts of things across our campuses, and then this would be a way to integrate all that. So if you'd like a copy, come see me. We're thinking, how can professors incorporate this book or ideas from this book into their curriculum? And thank you very much for your time. We'd like to present this copy of At Night We Walk in Circles to Dr. Kuhn.
Sorry? What is the lecture on? The lecture is Tuesday, March 19th at 10 in the library's new event space. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Patterson, and thanks to all the librarians in the community that's working on this. Excellent. I will tell you that everything I'm reading has been limited to audiobooks, so this will be a challenge, so thank you very much. So before we close out, actually I'm going to introduce shortly, Beth Patel is going to have some words and introduce our speaker. I wanted to mention that one of our esteemed faculty is notably missing this morning. Yep, so we've already taken roll and checked out who's here and who's not here. But Walter Turner, Professor of Social Science, is being honored this morning with the Lifetime Achievement Award at the 4th Annual Dream Awards, which is sponsored by the Marin Grassroots. So let's give Walter a very long time. So in closing, let me just say this. You know, with student success as our first priority, because that's clearly what this is all about, we will continue to teach, we will continue to train, and we will continue to transform lives this semester. So thank you very much for all that you do every day on behalf of our students and community. And thank you for your attention. We invite Beth Patel, ESL faculty and Flex Week coordinator extraordinaire, to the stage to make some announcements about Flex Week and introduce our speaker. Let's give Beth and her team a round of applause for the great work.
Great to see everybody back after the break. I'd like to take a couple of moments just to make a few Flex announcements before I introduce our keynote speaker today. We began Flex yesterday with a great turnout, and we still have a couple more days of Flex that are coming up on Thursday and Friday, and so I hope that you'll check out the schedules that we've posted online and that we've been sent out by email and join in some of those activities. I'd like to first start by just thanking those of you who took the lead and are presenting during Flex Week this week. Could I have those of you who are presenting for Flex Week please stand up for just a moment? Don't be shy. Come on. During the holidays, we had some that were very hard at work preparing for us, and I thank you so much. And I think it's a great way for all faculty and staff to come out and learn about what your colleagues are doing and see the things that they have to do. So I really appreciate that. We will have, after the convocation ends today, we will have another Flex activity right afterwards, a second session with our keynote speaker, and that's going to be over in Fusselman Hall 120. And so I would invite any faculty and staff to please come over and join us for a little bit of a deeper conversation with some of the concepts and ideas that our speaker is going to bring to us. Finally, with that, when you came in, most of you should have gotten a flyer about the love letters, yes? Okay, the drama department has offered a really great thing for the College of Marin community as a Valentine's gift for us. They are offering the opportunity for faculty and staff to attend the dress rehearsal of Love Letters, starring Jason Dunn and Ann Ripley, free of charge. Well, I'm sorry, James. What did I say, Jason? That's one of our art teachers, excuse me, James Dunn and Ann Ripley, excuse me on that, as kind of a gift to the college community, and I hope that you'll take advantage of that. Now, space is limited, and so on the sheet there is a place to call and make your reservations. So you'll be able to attend the presentation, and then afterwards there's going to be a Q&A about that. And part of the idea with this and the hope with this is that it might encourage faculty to think about how we could use live performance and drama and to incorporate some of that into our classroom. So we'll also be offering flex credit for that. So thank you to the drama department for that. It's now my privilege to be able to introduce our guest speaker for today. Our speaker for today is Diego Navarro. He is the founder of the Academy for College Excellence at Cabrillo College. He is a product of community college education here in California, going to Pasadena City College before he graduated from Antioch University, and then finally graduating from Harvard University with his master's in business. He's a former resident also of Marin. He went to school for a time in Marin and also served for a while as a community organizer for peace through a Quaker humanitarian organization. After graduating from college, he went on to spend 20 plus years working in the high-tech industry, where he was working with a number of different computer companies. And then he finally made a transition back into education, where he was able to focus and look toward pursuing some of his ideas about social justice and social change in the classroom through education. In 2002, he began working at Cabrillo College and started what's now known as ACE, the Academy for College Excellence, with an idea of really helping disadvantaged students, students that are underserved, students that have been dealing with poverty, and help them to use education as a way to break that cycle and to be able to reach their potential. I've been hearing Diego's name for a couple of years, and I was thrilled to finally hear him speak in the fall. And it's my pleasure today to introduce him to you. He is an innovative and innovative and passionate educator, and he's going to be sharing today some of his ideas about the programs that he's done and better ideas about how we can serve our students. Please welcome Diego Navarro.
Thank you, Beth. I'm really pleased to be here. I was thinking back to back in '78 is when I took a couple classes here at College of Marin. I think they were in the extension program because one was on meditation. But it was wonderful coming back. So I want to thank Dr. Kuhn for inviting me here, and also for Beth and all of her wonderful guidance. And you know, we have a very similar counties, Santa Cruz County and Marin. I mean, we have no growth initiatives that we started a long time ago. We are pretty affluent counties, but our counties are changing as well. And in Santa Cruz, back in 2002, I was asked to go to Watsonville, which is what they call South County, which is a virtual South, because it's actually East. But good, some people picked up on that. That's good. So they asked me to go to Watsonville. Watsonville is 80% Latino, very high poverty rates, underperforming high schools. They had 18 to 24-year-olds that were wreaking havoc on what was going on. They were disconnected from the civic engagement of the rest of the city, and they were trying to figure out what to do. And so the city manager invited me to come down and see if I could apply some of the social science research methodologies I was using in industry to this social problem. And so I went down and started doing interviews, 125 interviews, got to know kind of what the real issues were. The 125 interviews were in Watsonville and then across the country, because I was looking for solutions. And out of that research, the initial research, we did a year and a half of piloting of curriculum to solve what we saw as the key problem, and that is, how do you help students make that transition to being able to struggle? It's making the transition to struggle without giving up. and knowing they can do it. And so after that, the program was implemented. It's a full-time program, 1 semester, integrated curriculum, meaning that the curriculum's integrated, teachers aren't, teach our individual classes. And so I'm going to share with you 2 types of data in this presentation. One's on academic outcomes, which most of the funders and administrators like. So we have that. And then I'm going to share with you affective outcomes that are based on psychological constructs that are used in research that correlate to student success and what we've done to actually shift that. So that's just a little bit of what I'm going to be doing here. The title, this is the original title of the presentation. I don't like talking about closing the gap because that sets the bar too low, because the bar of the gap is really low. It's not even high. So let's not say that if we can close this gap, we're doing well. We've got to actually make it even better in terms of what we're trying to aim towards. But as I thought about this presentation, I came up with an alternative title. And the alternative title, which is long, sorry, is The Power of Higher Education to Disrupt the Cycle of Poverty. And that's something that we're starting to see through the program, that we're able to disrupt the cycle of poverty, and in meeting the needs of underprepared adult students and supporting their academic and professional success. That's what I'm going to be focusing on in this presentation. And today, I was driving up 101 and got off on Sir Francis Drake, and I noticed, it said San Quentin to the right. And I was in San Quentin in June. I wasn't wearing one of the orange uniforms, but they have a prison university project there. And we're bringing the ACE program to the county jail now. And so I wanted to get to know programs that are effective. And San Quentin it's an interesting program. If any of you are interested in that, you should look at it. It's called the Prison University Project. But it says San Quentin to the right, and then you pass that, and guess what it says next? College of Marin to the left. So I find that a lot of our students have that decision to make. Okay? And I had to make that decision, but a lot of it's implicit. It's not a decision you make thinking, oh, I'm going to go to San Quentin. It's what your behaviors and habits take you to. And being a product of the 60s and early 70s, we had a lot of habits to break. So, what I find is that our kids are street smart, and they're not kids. These adult students are street smart. They've learned a lot in their lives. Now the thing is that they may not know how to read and write at college level or do math at college level, but that doesn't mean they're not smart. When I started this program, I remember people pulling me aside and saying, oh, you're going to have 50% learning disabled students. They'll be illiterate, and blah, 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 blah. I think we probably had learning disabled students probably at 5% over the last 10, 12 years we've been doing this. So, how do we leverage these students' strengths to address their deficits is really the key. How do you take their strengths and leverage it so you deal with the deficits so that they can learn to struggle to do what we all had to do to become college educated? And they can do it. And we're showing that, and I'll show you the data around that. So we can solve the basic skills completion problem. There's some national statistics. I don't know where it is here, but between 60 to usually, at some colleges I've talked to, 90% of the incoming students are basic skill level students. 60% to 90, national average is 60. Okay? Of those students that are basic skills, some of them go into math, in the math pathway of basic skills. Do you know what percent of those students get out of the math pathway and actually attain and pass their first transfer level math course? 15%. 15%. Okay? And if you look at English, English is better, but it's about 33%. So what happens is that those 60 to 90% of students that are coming to our college, trying to decide if they're going to go to San Quentin or College of Marin, are leaving. And a lot of their hopes are dashed with that. So what do we do? How do we change entry into college such that they can make that transformation right from the get-go and do well? So this talk is about hope. And it's about student transformation, which which requires an experiential curriculum that addresses the affective part of the student, and that integrated with the academics. It has to be integrated together. And there's two types of integration that I've noticed around affective and education. One I call time slicing. So what you do is you take these affective exercises and you stick it in your math class, or you stick it in your English class, and you have teachers going, I can't even teach all my curriculum this semester, and I've got to add more stuff to it and take away the work that I'm supposed to be teaching them. You know, there's a trade-off decision. So the one is time slicing, and the other one is immersion, where the students go through an immersive process that then transforms them, and it happens rather quickly, and I'll show you some statistics around that as we get into this. So this is what I'll be talking about this morning. So I'll do an introduction, and that wasn't it. And then I'm going to talk about academic measurements and evidence. That'll be pretty short. And then I'm going to talk about the completion problem and the root issues, because I think how you think about the problem is going to be where you're going to focus your solution. And I'd like to talk about kind of what we've found over the last 12 or 13 years of what this problem really is. And then I'm going to talk about affective measurements and evidence, and then I had question and answer, but I was told that'll happen afterwards in the next session. And then the post-convocation session, we're going to open it up to questions first, but if we have time, I'll go into some affective approaches. But our trainings take much more time than a 45-minute session, because most of us were not trained in affective methods. When we went to college and we went to graduate school, we learned cognitively. We listened to the lectures, we did the work, but that's not the thing that's working for students today. Our colleges were designed at a time when students are different than the ones we're getting today. And at our college in Santa Cruz, if you look, and the student equity plan work is really good because it's helping us understand the differences of what's going on with different populations. But one thing that we found out was that there's not a high rate of poverty in Santa Cruz. I mean, South County, virtual South, there is, okay? But it's not that high. But what's interesting is you look at the student population at Cabrillo College, the percent of students from poverty is 3 to 4 times larger than the percent in the county. So what happens is that our students from affluent families take off, they go to college, and we have a lot of students that come to our college. So we're dealing with students that are different than the ones from the past. And therefore, we might not need to think about how do we change our colleges to make them effective. I noticed the statistics looking at your college. You're getting close to becoming a Hispanic serving institution. That's 25%. You're at 20% right now. About 10 years ago, you were half of that, less than half. Your student equity plan shows that in basic skills completion, you have issues with Latinos and African Americans, course completions with African Americans, with Latino males, and you have a problem with low-income males. Males seem to be a species that is having problems in college these days, and many of you are probably aware of that. So what I want you to walk away with in this talk is that students of color and disadvantaged backgrounds can succeed in college. They can succeed. They actually outperform, and I'll give you a reason why that happens. And the need to focus on the affective by transforming what we do in the community college to include that. Not to get rid of the cognitive work we're doing, because that's really important. And by the way, community colleges are great at preparing students for transfer and great for preparing our students for the workforce in the CTE areas. The thing that we have a challenge with is our basic skill students. And so what I'd like you to think about for a moment are 3 questions. Okay, so for students from poverty who do have behaviors that undermine their success, okay, behaviors, habits, mindsets, all those fit together, what are the undermining behaviors and attitudes that you've noticed in your classes? What are those behaviors and attitudes? Okay, why do they persist? Why do you think they persist? And what are the solutions to address them? So I'm going to give you a minute or so just to think about that. If we were in a classroom, I'd have you pull out a piece of paper and pen and write about it. But if you just think about this for a moment. What are the undermining behaviors and attitudes? Why do they persist? And what are solutions to address them? the reason why I'm asking you this question is that I think I found something, a number of us have found something about this. I teach a faculty workshop called Brain-Based Approaches to Design and Pedagogy. And the first thing I do in that workshop is I have faculty write down the behaviors and habits of successful students and the behaviors and habits of unsuccessful students. And then we brainstorm and we make 2 lists. Now, the next thing I do is I show them 2 slides. One slide is from Daniel Siegel, who's a medical doctor, actually a doctor of psychiatry at UCLA Med School. And I show them a slide from the National Institute of Health in their research on the prefrontal lobe. And you look at the functions of the prefrontal lobe, and it seems to match that list. It's developed, and there's a root bundle, and that's the good behaviors, and then you have a lack of a root bundle, and you have the other behaviors. And so the sense that we have, and we don't have scientific proof yet in terms of functional MRIs and that kind of thing to show this, even though there is some research coming out right now that I saw in the last few weeks, is that the prefrontal lobe is really the key to what we're dealing with. And if you're dealing with the prefrontal lobe, affective education and affective learning is going to be very helpful for that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to share with you some stories of students, and it's going to be in their voice, and I'm going to continue with this presentation. So I'm going to start off with the introduction. So this is a student, Anna. She was in the 2nd semester of my program in the spring of 2004. She crossed the border with her mother and her sister and went through Arizona and ended up in LA. They were there for about a year, but the family was feeling intense. The migra was after them, they could sense it. So they moved up to Watsonville. And by the time she turned 15, she had her quinceañera, which is a rites of passage for Latina women. And she had her quinceañera, and she graduated from 8th grade. And her family was really happy because she was the first person to pass 8th grade, to get an 8th grade education. And lo and behold, a few months later, she found out she was pregnant, dropped out of school before she even started high school. So I met her 10 years later, 11 years later. She was 26 years old. She was at the adult school in Watsonville. And a teacher pointed out she would be a good student. So I went and talked to her about what we were doing. And I said, come to my program, we're going to be doing an orientation. She said, no, I can't do that. I said, why not? And it all turns out that she didn't go to high school, and she felt she couldn't go to college if she didn't go to high school. So lo and behold, certain things happened. But she came into our program because she wanted to become a role model for her children. When I met her, she had 4 children. She wasn't married. She was burnt out, had been working 2 jobs for the last 10 years, and wanted to sort of change and get an education to try to do that. She was scared and thought she couldn't do it. So let's have Anna tell you a little bit about her experience.
I learned about myself. I learned what to expect from me. What else could I do to get my kids out from the hole I was? And I said, you know what? I'm going to do this. I'm going to make this. I can make it. I know I can.
Now, the video usually moves. Sorry about that. So what happened was that she transformed and was able to see that she could do it, and that she could struggle. And she found her place in college. You know, what I'm finding with our students, they say, these students that leave, they say, oh, these students, they have a weakness in persistence. They have a weakness in being able to complete their courses. Well, you know, I think we have it wrong. These students actually have a strength in persistence. They have a strength in survival. They've lived in environments that our kids would have a very difficult time living in, and they've made it through and they're still going. Okay, the real issue for us is how do we take that strength and transition it culturally so they can start to understand the culture of college, they can understand what's expected of them, and do it with some heartfelt connection with them so they can make that transition and make those decisions themselves to move in that direction. So how do we take their strength and actually apply it? Apply their strength to college so they can make that transition. So what's the affective domain? So the affective domain is feelings and emotions and hope, and a lot of us don't like to feel, and emotions are sometimes not comfortable. It's also about mindsets and beliefs. It's about self-image, and college identity we're finding is actually a key psychological construct that is important. for student success. Perseverance, self-discipline, delayed gratification, behaviors, habits, mindfulness. We're finding mindfulness is actually a very important thing. And remember what course I took here at College of Marin? I needed it. That was a joke too, but I did need it. Social skills and learning strategies. So when I talk about the affective domain, I'm talking about this area of work. Okay? And so this talk is about hope. And about what we and others have learned about what we can do. So there's 3 tiers of our affective approach. The first one is awareness. So what I found out about 12 years ago is that these students that we think can't make it, or that don't make it, they can do really well in school. But we have to focus on these 3 areas. And one of them is becoming awake. Waking up to the habits and the behaviors and the mindsets you have. Okay? And finding purpose, because a lot of them are lost. Okay? A lot of us. I was one of them. Okay? So this is a little exercise on awareness, just to give you an idea of what an affective exercise is like. So let's talk about the ladder of learning. You know, learning is learning, but there's certain levels of learning. Okay? You can look at different approaches that people have talked about. I'm going to use what we call the ladder of learning. Okay? This is out of our curriculum that we use. Okay? The first level is called fast pass matching. Okay? And that's not the first level. It's actually, you're not on the ladder when you're doing fast pass matching. So you're not learning when you're doing that. Fast pass matching is, oh, Diego was talking about something, well, I knew that already. So you just close your mind down. Okay? It happens to me. My wife will be telling me something, and I'll go, I've heard that before, and I just go off in dreamland. And then she changes, she talks about something else, and I wake back up and go, oh, where are we? It causes problems. Fast pass matching is not about learning. Okay? So this awareness exercise is, as we go on the rest of this week and your flex week, notice where you are in the ladder of learning. Okay, fast pass matching is one level. Or is it on the ladder? The first one is insight. Ooh, that's interesting. Oh, I just learned something. Oh, and now I understand. That's the first level of learning. Okay, the second level of learning is action behavior change. Oh, that was interesting, but now I'm going to apply it. Okay, the third is making it reliable. Okay, so now not only have you tried it, you actually use it. And then the fourth level is you become an expert, a mentor, and authority. And now you teach it, you mentor other people around it. So you actually have made it reliable, and now you can teach others about it. And we all know that students that learn things are probably better teachers than teachers sometimes, because they understand where the student is at what level, sometimes. So what do you think the problem is when you become an expert, mentor, and authority in terms of ladder of learning?
You go back to the bottom.
What's the risk of being at the fourth level?
Stop learning?
Yeah, you go back to the 0. Okay, I heard that before. Turn off your mind. Oh, I know that already. Turn off your mind. Okay, just notice. So I'd like you to just be aware of how do you react in your learning process this week. Okay? So I'm going to have a student talk about his experience too. Now, the video is not going to change anything. Okay, so one of the things about awareness is, who are you? When I was here in Marin, I was lost. I was about 19 years old. I didn't get my college degree till I was 28. It took me quite a number of years to figure out what I was going to do with my life and what I wanted to do. So a lot of our students they don't know where they are and they don't know where they're going. And that's part of what we have to deal with in terms of the affective.
Have you ever been asked, where do you see yourself in 10 years? Yeah, well, they would always ask me that and stuff, and I didn't know. I couldn't picture myself, and now I do. I have goals of having a career in the medical field, and having my house and my family car, stuff like that. Now I see which direction I'm going into. And what helped me out a lot too was, it helped me get organized because Diego talks about, he teaches management and leadership. And that really helped me out a lot too, to become organized. And then the leadership helped me just work with other people within my family, at school, and at work.
So he needed to figure out what he needed to do with his life. and learn some skills. One of the next skills is building collaborative leadership skills. Some people call it servant leadership. We focus on how do you build the capacity to learn to lead in a way that you develop the people around you. It's not a leadership by dictatorship, it's a leadership by support. And then finally, it's the habits that you need to change, and the mindsets, the self-discipline, the self-efficacy, and understanding the college culture. This next student is from inner city Oakland. We have a program there that we serve inner city Oakland students and students from Richmond. And this is what she talked about, that she didn't have role models in her life. I'm going to switch this out so it actually turns into video. It's not going to be as large, but at least you'll see. Let me see if I can do this.
I can see myself being a lot more disciplined.
Guess not.
They gave me a floor plan, basically. If I follow these blueprints, I couldn't see myself being anything but successful.
So she needed to have these 3 affective supports to be effective in college. And you can do this rather quickly. A lot of the fear that people have is that it takes years and years of therapy to get to where you need to be. And I think that what we can build is a cultural and behavioral roadmap to help our students as they're doing the academics. Okay? And so what we do in our program is that we have these 3 things that we do, but we tie it into academics, rigorous academics. Because you want them to be struggling, you want them to be learning and at their peak. So a little bit about me and our programs to be very short. We've served about over 4,000 students now at 10 colleges. We've trained over 1,000 faculty at 60 organizations, and we've had multiple longitudinal studies, because I'm going to go into the measurement stuff next. My background, my parents were ESL students. They were born in this country. They have the scars from having an accent. They didn't want us to learn Spanish when we were kids, even though they were bilingual, and my grandparents, who we lived with for a period of time, were monolingual Spanish. My mom didn't graduate from high school. 7th grade, I was tracked into wood shop and metal shop, because Latino, you're good with your hands, so I was tracked to that. I lived in a place called Pomona. Many of you will think Pomona College, which is actually Claremont. I lived in Pomona and went to Pomona High School, very tough schools. A lot of riots, closing down schools, a lot of violence. My mother died in 9th grade. My mother died when I was in 9th grade of bone cancer. This is came out of that experience really wounded and traumatized by it. And then my father he was out all the time, so I was on the streets of Pomona through my high school years. So I had a very similar background. I graduated from high school, couldn't read and write at college level. So I was one of these students. And what I find is that poverty is a big issue that we need to be addressing and thinking about. Tough situations these students come from, and we have to witness to them. They're there. We need to understand that's happening, and that education becomes irrelevant for these students, and that's a lot of the reasons why they disconnected, was because education became irrelevant, and that's what happened to me in high school. You're living in a home environment, you're waking up in the middle of the night with your mother screaming at the top of her lungs, you cannot do anything about it because there's no pain control. Well, I would go to school the next day, school didn't mean anything. Okay, so school became irrelevant, and that happens to many of our students for different reasons. Divorce in the family, there's a lot of different reasons for it. Okay, so there's hope here. We can do something with these students, and here's some of the academic measurements. Okay, so this is a study. This is a study that was funded by the Gates Foundation. The study that it came after was a CCRC study. The Community College Research Center for Columbia University studied our program. But the end of the study was 66 students, and they were all from Cabrillo College, and I taught in part of the cohorts that they were in. So there was this Diego effect that people were concerned about, but the outcomes were so significant, Gates Foundation funded this study. So this study is a 4-college study, so it's 4 college, 1,000 students, so the end's a good end, okay? It underrepresented students, about 80% underrepresented. Prior college credits, 2.4, so these are pretty new students to college. You had almost over 90% that were developmental or basic skills students, of which 48% were placed 2 levels or below in English. In math, it was almost 90% that were placed 2 or more levels below college math. Almost 26% were GED and degree or high school dropouts, and the mean age was about 24.9, because our program serves multi-generational. It's really wonderful to get these students in that are younger and older together, because they learn from each other in a very effective way. So what I'm going to share with you right now is a longitudinal study, 3 slides, and they're going to show you after they leave our program. They're in our program for a semester, and then they leave our program, and then we do nothing with them after that. There's no support services available to them besides what they get as a regular college student. Okay, so they have the transformation, and the transformation is intrinsic, and they leave our program, and now they're on their own. They take classes with the other students. They come by your office and visit you, but there's no support services for them, except for those that are available to all students. So this is what we found. The first slide is going to be when they left our program, how did they do the first semester and the second semester in passing both transfer level English and transfer level math? Okay? So this is what they found. Okay, one semester after our program, in the comparison group, this is a propensity score matched study, so a pretty rigorous study. 7.8 times more likely to pass transfer level math and English one semester afterwards, 4 times more likely to pass math and English 2 semesters after. Okay?
Give me the battery.
If you look at transfer level English passing, 2.3 times more. 2 semesters later, 1.7 times more. In math, you have the same thing. So 4.3 times more and 3.3 times more. What I find is that these students have a strength and persistence. If we can just help them do the cultural shift and actually understand what's going on for them when they start to react in environments that seem threatening to them, how do we help them do that? And one thing that the study showed is that there's velocity. There's velocity. The students come out of the program really going, and the other group is catching up. And that's what tends to happen, catching up very slowly. So what's the completion problem and the root issues that we're dealing with here? Okay, the completion problem has to do with several slides. This is one of them. This is based on census data. Okay, you'll notice that the blue is the top income quartile, so students that come from top income quartile, and the bottom one is students that come from the bottom income quartile. And what you'll probably notice is that one flatlines and the other one doubled in terms of completion. Okay, completion of degrees and certificates is a social issue. Why is the bottom flatline? There's a lot of people that'll say, oh, it's because of culture, it has to do with family, it has to do with how smart they are. There's a lot of different reasons people say. And so what are we going to do to address that bottom? Because I think that's the issue that we're dealing with in our colleges. At least at our college, I was saying, 3 to 4 times higher population of students in poverty in our college than the represented community around the college, okay, the people that we serve. If you want to look at poverty, well, poverty, here's another slice. So here's children living in poverty. 37.3% of the poor children were Latino, 30.5% were white, 26.6% were black. Out of the Latino population, 35% of the children are living in poverty. Now, these numbers here, this adds up to more than 15 million students. Do you know what the capacity of the community college system is in the United States? The capacity of the community college system in the United States is 12 million students. 12 to 13 million students that we serve. This is coming at us, 15 million. So when we see that we are serving low-income students, it's going to increase, not decrease. Okay, Obama's initiative, the College Promise proposal, will probably increase the number of low-income students that we have coming to our colleges. You're going to see this increasing. The Opportunity Youth Program that the White House initiated a year ago, which the Aspen Institute is now helping to move forward, where they've identified 6.9 million 16 to 24-year-olds that don't have a high school diploma and are not connected in the employment realm, that they're actually going after those students to help them transition and deal with the issues to get them back into society. 15 million students are going to be coming at us. And most community colleges were designed for a different student population. So that's part of what we have to deal with. And the irony is that these students exhibit great strength and persistence and survival. The thing is, we've got to tap it. We have to tap it and we have to work from that. Okay? See, affective pedagogy supports students to become aware when they're dysregulated and uncentered. Okay? It helps them learn the tools to regulate themselves and self-manage. It puts in place strategies to reach their goals. It helps them develop college identity and a growth mindset. They're trying to do multiple things at once to get them prepared as they do their academics. And if we look at the trends you'll see that all the trends for these three groups, white, black, and Latino, all increase. So poverty is going up, and we all know about that, the 99% and all that stuff. So there was a study done by Peter Baer. How many of you are familiar with the study Peter Baer did for the California Community College Chancellor's Office? Peter Baer is a professor at the University of Michigan, I think in sociology. This study was published in 2010 in the Research on Higher Education. What he looked at were 166,000 first-time students that came to community colleges in California. He looked at their course-taking behavior, and he, out of the segmentation, came up with 6 categories. There's a help guide of what these students look like and how to help them. Okay, what he found was there was one cluster called the completion unlikely cluster, okay, out of the student population of 166,000 students. In that completion unlikely cluster, it was the largest segment, and it was 40% African American and 30% Latino. That fell into this cluster. The lowest course success rates, passing only 26% of their classes, only 10% achieved completion outcomes. Less than 1% passed college level math. Less than 1% passed college level math. They attempted 16 units before dropping out. This is a pretty rigorous study that he did, and I think that poverty is really the issue that I'm finding with the students that we've been working with across the country. And we serve students from Chester, which is outside of Philadelphia, an African American, very tough community. We have students that we serve in Richmond and in inner city Oakland, Watsonville, Salinas. And so the study I showed you were of those students. So the real issue, I think, has to do with degrees of commitment, is that we have designed our colleges for students that were well-grounded, confident, and prepared. Back in the 50s and the 60s, that's pretty much who came to our colleges. But today we're getting tentatively committed people coming to our college. And it has to do with entering students, both today have different needs than the students from before. They come with huge range of backgrounds, age, ethnicity, education, socioeconomic level. Some of them are dealing with struggles and fragmented families and needs of the families and vestiges of violence that's happened in their neighborhoods and their schools, poverty and loss of families, child care, unmet health challenges. You understand what these things are. We all are pretty aware of it. And so how do we help them become committed? What we found, and I have some colleagues at the Community College of Baltimore County, and they did this survey and came up with 2 root issues that they think were part of it. And then we found there was actually a 3rd one that we added to it. And what we found was, if you look at the root problems, the first is life problems become overwhelming. Okay, so how do you address life problems becoming overwhelming? And what I found is that the traditional way that community colleges address it is through case management and intrusive advising. Okay, and that's what we tend to do. And do we have the resources to do that level of work for all the students that are coming in? Okay, I'll share with you a model that's a peer support facilitated model using curriculum in the classroom to help facilitate the support that you need to provide 24/7 student support. And you can scale that pretty big. We've done that, 350 students we've served at Cabrillo College using it. But it requires immersion. It requires a different way of doing things. Okay? But it's instructional based. It's in the instructional side of the house. The second thing is their life is more attractive than college life. So what I mentioned before, education is irrelevant. That happens a lot to our students. So they come in and have to turn in a paper. Why would I turn in a paper? I can go home and hang out with my friends. Immersion takes long days, 9 to 5, to get that shift to happen. You need to take over their lives so they can develop that college identity, that grabs their attention. It's an important piece. And our first exercise that we do in that immersion course just resets their mind in terms of, college can be about something different than what I've had in terms of my education so far. Now here's another student, and I'm sorry the video isn't working, but he found himself enamored by things outside of school. He finally learned to become focused on college.
The academies pretty much opened my eyes and let me know that I could do it, Whatever it is that you desire, as long as you have the heart and you stick for what it is you want, you'll get it,
So he learned to shift. It was interesting. He came into the program, he had a hood over his head. It was the fall of 2004, he was in the program. He had a hood on. By the third day, his hood was off. And I would notice that he was reading a book that had like these sections like taped together. And I said, because of affective issues, mostly centered around fear, anxiety, and suspicion that they're not college material. I mean, if students are walking in with that and you challenge them in class, you cold call them, which they used to do in graduate school for us, that is really a very difficult way to deal with these students. I gave a workshop a year ago in Chicago with faculty, and it's about how do you create safety in the classroom. Now, why do you think safety is important? Of course, we want to challenge these students. We want them to be problem solvers. We want all this stuff. But they come in, with fear and anxiety and suspicion that they're not college material. So if that's what you're dealing with, do you get them scared? Well, this is how the brain works. You can go look this up. When you feel threatened, your amygdala kicks off. The amygdala are these almond-shaped type of glands in your head. They're in the old reptilian brain. Okay? It kicks in 11 milliseconds. Okay? It controls your life because if there's a tiger coming at you, you've got to deal with it. So the survival of our species, the amygdala is critical. The problem is that in education, your amygdala kicks off at the wrong time. Okay? What happens when the amygdala kicks off? It's physiological. You cannot do anything about it. The amygdala kicks off, and your cortex shuts down. Why? Well, your cortex shuts down because the blood used for thinking needs to now go to the large muscle groups. Okay, so physiologically, the brain shuts down in terms of thinking. So anytime you threaten a student in class or they don't feel safe, guess what's happening? It's physiological. It's not that they're not smart. Okay, we've got to learn to create safety, to help them bridge in, to see when they're going into bioreactions so they can control it. Not control going into it because you can't control that, but to become aware that you're in it and know some methods to get you out of it. Okay, and that's one of the things we build into the curriculum. So here's a student who had issues in her childhood that affected her. And the way that she saw herself vis-a-vis other people got in the way and limited her. Okay? And so Gloria will say a little bit about kind of a change that happens through affective learning. And I think I just went a little too far.
When the first 2 weeks were done, I had no doubt that I could accomplish my goals of becoming a nurse. I wanted to first start as a medical assistant, and then I wanted to become a nurse. And I can't even express to you guys just the desire that he had lit in me, just to want to learn, to want to continue. Wow, I can do this. The grass is starting to look greener for me. Every time, the grass would look greener on the other side. That saying. Well, that's how I've always felt. Especially from my background of what I had seen. I would be envious about other people. Oh, I want to be like them. I want to be like them. Well, now I'm so excited to be me. It's here I am young, I'm still young, I'm trying to do this goal, I'm trying to accomplish it, and I feel like I am going to.
So here's a student that started out thinking she would do one thing as a medical assistant, and then after struggling through and seeing she can do it, changed her trajectory of where she wanted to go and become a nurse. And we've seen this over and over again. We have a lot of qualitative data around this in the research that we've been doing. So what I'd like to do now, I've tried to frame what the problem is around completion, at least for schools that are supporting students that come from poverty. Okay? So I'd like to talk about affective measurements and evidence. And this is some of the research that we've been doing that came out of the Gates-funded work. Okay? So what I'm going to lay out for you is a framework that the University of Chicago put together on what affective learning is about, based on a lit review, a very extensive lit review they did, published in 2012. That lays a framework. Then I'm going to show you how we went about studying the affective side, looking for constructs out of psychological research that measures certain components. And then I'll share with you a study of 769 students from 6 colleges. And when we measured them before they came in, we measured them 2 weeks after the immersion, and we measured them at the end of 4 months, what happened in terms of these psychological constructs that research has shown correlate to student success and student completion. Okay. So this is the model that came out of the work Seal Farrington. It's called Teaching Adolescents to Become Learners, University of Chicago Consortium of Chicago Schools. A lot of the research on affective learning is K through 12. The adult part of this work has only come about in the last 4 to 5 years as research started to focus on that. One of the groups that's doing that is the Carnegie Foundation for Advancement of Teaching at Stanford, work that Carol Dweck's doing at Stanford, Angela Duckworth at University of Pennsylvania. There's a number of really good researchers in this area. So what are the 5 areas? Well, one is called academic mindsets. Okay, and academic mindsets are a number of things. It's not just mindsets work of Carol Dweck. There's a whole constellation of things that fall into that. The second area is social skills. So having the skills, the collaborative leadership skills, the ability to work with other people, seeing that you're in bioreaction and the amygdala is kicked in. It's a bunch of skills in that area. It has to do with academic perseverance. So building what Angela Duckworth calls grit. Grit's becoming this popular term. Okay, but there's a constellation of things there beyond grit. Grit is one piece of it. And then there's learning strategies and there's academic behaviors. So if you look at college survival skill classes, they tend to focus on these 2 things, learning strategies and academic behaviors. Okay? They tend not to focus on these other 3 areas. And that's what we focused in our programs. We focused on all 5 of these areas. So what we did was we had developed different measurement tools to measure this. And then when the Gates Foundation came in, we were able to develop a relationship with the University of California, with a social psychologist there, cognitive scientist, and we started to look at constructs that we could measure, because our evaluators would come back and say, the students are on fire, and I'd say, that's great, but how do you measure it? Fire is not a good thing in certain environments, and a lot of people don't believe that students are on fire, so how do you show that? Okay, so what we did is we identified constructs in research that had the following criteria. Okay, they correlated with student success and completion. So if you're high in this construct, you would be successful as a student. Based on research grounded in theories from multiple fields, okay, so theory-based constructs, published in peer-reviewed journals, and had a standardized measurement tool. So what we did was we developed a measurement tool that took 11 constructs that we saw actually applied to what we were looking for. We developed a measurement tool using the standardized measurements, did the factor analysis, both exploratory and confirmatory factor analysis, and those 11 constructs actually boiled down to 8 factors. And what we found, for example, is an academic self-efficacy. Well, that and hope and goals, these different theories that academicians have come up with actually are similar. So we found that through the factor analysis, some of them were similar. Okay, so we had 8 factors that we measured. Okay, and they fell into mindsets area, which was college identity and academic self-efficacy and hope and goals. It's a multidisciplinary one, or multi-complex one. And then mindfulness describing. There's some very interesting research going on in medical schools right now in prefrontal lobe, and they use what's called the Kentucky Inventory of Mindfulness to measure the shifts that are going on, the changes. And we use 4 of the constructs from the Kentucky Inventory of Mindfulness. The second area is social skills, so teamwork and leadership, interacting with others, and then perseverance and self-control, these 3 mindfulness areas. And what we found in this study, first measurement before they came in the program, second measurement after 2 weeks, because the real question is it really going to take 5 years of therapy? Is it going to take 6 semesters of case management to help these students make the shift? Or can you do it quickly in 2 weeks? Okay, and then does it stick at the end of the semester, and do these students do well? Well, you've seen the academic outcomes. The students do pretty well after they leave the program. Okay, so the question is, can you get the shift to happen? So this is what the study showed. Now, I will explain this in 2 bullets. Okay, but the before is the yellow, and blue is the well, actually there's 3 of them. Blue is the 2 weeks later, and the end of the semester is in white. And so what you'll find out is the results here were at a 0.001 level of significance, and that's also true for the academic study. The significance level is 0.001 in all the factors here and also the academic. What we found was that the students actually shifted 7 of the 8 factors in just 2 weeks. 7 of the 8 factors in 2 weeks, okay, at a 0.001 level of significance. And with the exception of 2 factors, they remained the same at that new level or got better at the end of 4 months. So we find that there is a correlation between academic success and affective learning. So what we're finding is that there's certain things that the research is showing us about the affective non-cognitive approach. One is that students are more likely to succeed if they have certain affective behaviors. Now you can look at the work at the University of Chicago, you can look at Carol Dweck's work at Stanford, or Angela Duckworth's work on grit at University of Pennsylvania, Daniel Goldman, I'm sure many of you are familiar with his work. Paul Tuff has written articles in the New York Times, as well as written a book, How Children Succeed. There's a lot of research in this area, but the affective learning is really important. It's not just for children. Okay? The second is that how students experience their first 3 weeks of college enrollment can significantly impact their achievement. This is a finding from Kay McClenny. Many of you may know of her from the University of Texas, Austin. The Community College Survey of Student Engagement is her baby. And what they find is that the first 3 weeks are the critical time for students. And so the question I ask is, well, why don't we use those first 3 weeks and actually do something that shifts one of the key things within the students that they need? Now, if you go to elite schools, you know what they do for the first week and sometimes 2 weeks with their incoming students? They call it orientation. And they do a week, sometimes 2 weeks of orientation. Why? Because they know this is absolutely critical. And they know they're putting these students through pressure cooker. And even though these are great students, they need to have something shift inside of them. Well, I would say that our students have a bigger challenge than their students to make the shift from being underprepared students and not having a college identity to that shift. So what do we do in terms of orientation? We all know what we do. We don't really give it much thought. We do. Our online orientations, we have one at our college stuff. It's not that we don't give it good thought, but we're not doing what may help these students, and that's an immersion to help them make the changes that are possible. And I'm going to skip this video with another student. The third area is that accomplishing 20 units in a student's initial year at college can advance their likelihood for success in completing transfer-level English and math courses. This is work that's been done to Ed Trust funded, so Offenstein and Moore and Shulock. NPR Associates published on this. So that's the third area. And the fourth area aligns with research on academic acceleration of basic skill students. You can look at the Community College Research Center's work, Edgecombe and colleagues there, Katie Hearn's work from Chabot, California Acceleration Project research from our program, because ours is all accelerated. We do accelerated math and accelerated English in our one semester program. We focus from the very beginning because these are very smart people. Okay, we just need to change our curriculum to meet their needs. And I'll go into that a little bit more later afterwards, what that looks like. Actually, I'll probably cover that now. So why does affective work? So there's a thing in research that's called the structural equation model. I don't know if how many of you are familiar with that. But a structural equation model is kind of your theory of change. Because my sense is that the prefrontal lobe is one of the key things that we're dealing with. We're dealing with bioreaction, the amygdala. And so how do you deal with that? So what we found is that there's two things that happen in that 2-week immersion and then through the semester. One is that the students change the relationship to themselves. And the second is they change their relationship to other people. And fundamentally, those are the two things that happen. And so this is our structural equation model. We have these factors, which I showed you the measurements from, that measure relationship to self. We also look at relationship to others. These are the factors. You shift those, okay, mindset, social skills, and perseverance. If you shift those, you start to affect the academic ability of the students that then deals with persistence and completion. And so this is what we're looking at. And at the last RP group conference, the Strengthening Student Success Conference, Craig Hayward, he's one of the people from the IR department at my college, but now he's in San Diego, in Southern California. We presented some outcomes showing what we're learning from the structural equation model, that indeed this is actually happening. And so what is it that we do? So I'm just going to put it in very small terms, and I'm sorry this yellow isn't that easy to read. So the first thing you need to do is you need to get students to believe they can do it. You need to light the fire for learning. You need to have them wake up to their potential and to wake up to what they do. Because students will wake up and go, I can do it, I want to do this. They get really, I'm going to be a straight A student, blah, blah, blah. And they start class, and they're looking at their goal, and they're walking in a different direction, and they don't even know it. They don't know it because they made implicit decisions earlier in their life that they're not conscious of. Okay, and they're just doing it. So the thing is that you have to wake them up multiple times so that they can align their behaviors and habits with their goal. And that's what the next thing you need to do, which is on a regular basis, you need to monitor their progress, and you need to motivate the students. You need to also help the students solve life problems as they go forward. And finally, you need to integrate that with academic learning. And so what we do in our program is that we do all of this in instruction. It's an instruction. So we have a 3-credit foundation course. It's 8 days long, 9 to 5. It's college credit they get. We're in the process of getting it at University of California and at Cal State, so it'll be transfer level. And so it's a 2-week immersion that actually shifts them, and you saw the results of that. Then we take the student cohort and we have what's called the Team Self-Management course. And that's the course that helps them wake up more and see their behaviors and habits and figure out where they really want to go and how they're going to get there through a 24/7 support service model that the students provide each other. It's a peer model. So through curriculum, we help them connect with each other and provide the level of support they need as they go through this transition. And we tie it to a rigorous academic program, which they're taking pre-statistics course, because we do a social justice research course. It's primary research. These students are PhDs in social injustice. These students have PhDs in social injustice. They really understand injustice. So the thing is you got to tap into what are the topics that really are important to them, that have plagued them, their families, their neighborhoods. Okay? Then you put them in teams, because in teams they're going to learn a lot about how to work together and deal with each other in the 24/7 support service. Put them in teams, and then you take them through a primary research project, like you would do in graduate school. Okay? But you do it in 13 weeks. So they develop their research questions. If you're an expert on a topic, you can come up with research questions, because research questions, though they're very difficult to come up with, you can teach students to do that. Then you take those research questions, develop surveys. So they develop what's quantitative questioning, qualitative questioning, and then you correlate it back to the research questions. Then they go out and they interview 150 people or survey 150 people. Now have to put that into a spreadsheet. It gets in the spreadsheet. You can't use an abacus to figure it out. You need to have descriptive statistics to understand. So now they have a contextual environment to understand math, and they want to know the answers, because this is something that's important to them. They're motivated, and that's how you get the shift to happen. And remember Peter Baer's study. 1% of that student, of that cluster of African American and primarily Latino students, 1% pass transfer level math. Okay? So you need to create a contextual environment for them to actually want to learn something that's been very difficult and plagues them. And so that's what we do. And I'll be doing a little talk afterwards. And look, I really appreciate being here and having the honor of being able to talk with you.
Yeah, I just thank you so much, Diego, for sharing that with us, and we look forward to the next part that you have to say. As I said before, we'll be meeting next over in Fusselman Hall, room 120 at 11:15, so that'll give everybody just a minute to take a short break and then to come over here. But then I hope you'll join us so that we can continue that conversation. Okay. But thank you for coming to Convocation today, and I look forward to seeing you at the other Flex activities the rest of the week, and I wish you all the very best semester. Thank you.